Hello, true duelists. It's YGO Strats Yu-Gi-Oh! Single card history, where I'm going to be talking about some of the cards that have impacted Yu-Gi-Oh! Throughout the years, and some of the other ones that didn't. Today's card, the type of support card that most decks can only dream of, the Phantom Knights of Rusty Bardiche. Rusty Bardiche was first released in the Legendary Hero decks in 2018 as an ultra rare, with only one reprint to date as I make this video. A premium gold rare print from Maximum Gold in 2020. For time on the ban list, the card was first hit on the July 2019 ban list, where it was outright banned because, to quote Konami, fun is not legal. Fun would be re-legalized once again, however, when the card went back to 1 on the September 2020 ban list, and it was unlimited again on the March 2021 ban list, where as of this video, it has been ever since. A Dark Attribute Link 3 Warrior type monster with 2100 attack and arrows pointing right, bottom left, and bottom right. The materials needed to summon are any 2 or more dark monsters, and its effect reads: during your main phase, you can send one The Phantom Knights monster from your deck to the graveyard, set one Phantom Knight spell or trap directly from your deck in your spell and trap zone. If a Dark Xyz monster is special summoned to a zone this card points to while this card is on the field, except during the damage step, you can target one card on the field, destroy it. You can only use each effect of the Phantom Knights of Rusty Bardiche once per turn, cannot be used as link material. I like Bardiche because I started playing Phantom Knights in 2021, and it just feels like a card that was designed with 2 separate effects that they squished into one. Like, setting to the spell a trap to the field would be good by itself, or being a Foolish Barrier would be good by itself, but it does both for like no reason. It's just really fantastic for the deck, and I really appreciate that as an incredibly biased player. Out of the gate, this card saw play, and the first top comes from the exact deck you're expecting, Blackwing. Or maybe you didn't expect it, who knows. Either way, it's a solid showcase of what this card would ultimately be known for. The deck would make it with one of its countless Blackwing extenders for the simple purpose of buffing up their end board with a copy or 2 of Phantom Knight's Fogblade. The role of the deck was as simple as it gets. Make Bardiche as a Link 3 with solid arrows, then use its effect to bend Silent Boots and set one Fogblade, and then banish Silent Boots from the grave to search and set the second Fogblade. So you get some free monster negates to go with whichever Blackwing monsters you want on your end board. Really though, the Blackwing deck was more of an exception to the standard that was 2018, with the real archetype that would most abuse Bardiche really being Dangers in all actuality. Crazy, I know, the endless board spam of dark monsters saw use coupled with a very splashable and generic dark monster. Lunalight was the deck that became coupled at the hip with Danger monsters back in 2018 and 2019, and so to no shock, in the video about Bardiche, it also is playing Rusty Bardiche. Bardiche was great for setting up the ideal turn 1 combo, able to send a copy of Silent Boots from the deck to the grave in order to set a copy of Shade Brigandine as opposed to Blackwing's chosen Fogblade. Shade Brigandine is a trap that you can activate on the turn that it was set, provided you have no traps in your graveyard, and will summon itself as a level 4 monster, which helped with the deck's core strategy of spamming 4s, in particular to summon out Time Thief Redoer. Redoer was one of 2 critical pieces for the deck, because it could banish itself during your own turn in order to summon itself back in the end phase with no materials. This was important when coupled with Phantom Knight's rank up spell that could be searched off the initially dumped Silent Boots. And then on the opponent's turn in their main phase, you could activate the effect of a Phantom Knight's rank up magic launch, targeting your Redoer and ranking it up into a copy of Outer Entity Azathoth. This has an effect that makes it so the opponent can't activate monster effects, which are a little important in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh!, particularly in 2018 and 2019. This was the ideal turn 1 combo, and that's right folks, it's all just Stun Lock Turbo to completely prevent the opponent from playing the game. Shoutouts to them, because my god, that was as annoying as it was successful. And Bardiche was of course a key piece to the combo, giving players consistent access to the rank up spell, a trait that helped its placing on the ban list in short time, I'm sure. It wasn't always Lunalight as the accompanying engine, however, as some players would opt to play a Warrior package instead in order to get out the pieces needed for this same sort of board. This is functionally the same deck, or at least the same sort of deck, just instead of Lunalight's endless soft once per turns, it's abusing the Warrior type's endless ability to keep summoning. This deck did have the nice bonus of being able to use Neospace Connector to get out Neospace and Aqua Dolphin that you could use to get rid of any opponent's hand traps, or at the very least get hand knowledge from. Didn't change the game plan at the end of the day though. Make Bardiche, set Shade Brigandine, send Boots to the graveyard, and then bust out Redoer, get it no materials, and on the opponent's turn slap down an Azathoth and stare back at a person who looks at you with nothing short of hatred in their eyes. Phenomenal. While this was popular and evil, it wasn't the real home that Bardiche was known for, or even probably ultimately banned for. I don't know exactly. That would instead be Orchest decks, especially once the card Orchest Dingirsu of the Morning Star was released, or whatever the hell that card's actual name is. Orchest was a deck known for its Dark Lock and its ability to turn any two monsters into the full combo. This was done through the effect of Nightmare Mermaid, able to summon out Orchest Nightmare from the deck, and Nightmare itself would need any Nightmare monster to use as material to summon it. So you get two monsters with different names, link them into Nightmare, Phoenix, or Cerberus, link off into Mermaid, and you're off to the races. Once you've summoned out Orchest Nightmare with Mermaid, you could link both of them off to summon Galatea the Orchest Automaton. You could then use Nightmare's effect to banish itself and dump a copy of, say, Orchest Harpoorer. Harpoorer could then be used to banish itself to summon a copy of Symbol Skeleton from the deck. Making Bardiche using these meant you could send a copy of Ancient Cloak to search out a copy of Silent Boots while setting a Fog Blade, and then you could use Symbol Skeleton to bring back your Galatea. This was important since you can use Galatea as material to summon out Dingirsu. Equip the banished Symbol Skeleton to use as one of its many materials, and by then summoning the Silent Boots from your hand, you could link off Dingirsu and Silent Boots for a second Galatea. And by using Galatea's effect at any point in this combo, you could set yourself the Orchest Field spell onto your field, which will allow you to use Orchest effects as quick effects on the opponent's turn. After all this is said and done, you'll end up with a Symbol Skeleton and a Dingirsu in your graveyard. You cap off the turn by searching a second Fog Blade with your Silent Boots, and you're looking at what the kids call full Orchest combo. Any two monsters gets you two monster negates, and thanks to the field spell letting you revive Dingirsu on the opponent's turn, you could revive Dingirsu to a zone Bardiche points to, and then you'll get Dingirsu's effect to non-targeted send a card to the graveyard and Bardiche's targeted pop. Not too bad, especially depending on what the other 3 or 4 cards in your opening hand might have been. There were countless variants of decks using this exact combo, more or less, ranging from this Mermail variant that I always laugh at because nothing like it showed up afterwards from what I've been able to find, and it's just funny to see someone saw Darklock.deck and was like, I'm getting fishy with it. Really though, it's it's much more common to see Orchest played alongside cards that synergize naturally with it, namely, World Legacy World 1 and Gizmek Orochi. Dark Machine monsters is, I think, the point I'm getting at here. Orchest's final form before the ban list would push it out of the meta, or at least push Bardiche out of the meta, would ultimately be Sky Striker Orchest, combining two of the best decks of the format to get the best of both worlds, that is, Engage and the ability to summon any two monsters. The Striker engine could easily get two names without using the normal summon by using a copy of Hornet Drones, linking the summoned token into Gargari to get back Hornet Drone, summon a second monster, and two monsters with different names. These builds would use all sorts of engines that Orchest had been known to use up to this point, be it a Trickstar engine to use Candina and Corabine to get two monsters on board. I think I got that monster's name right. And some people even teched in the Neo Space Connector and Dolphin engine because all of it's just the means to the ends. The ends being that same trusty Dingirsu Bardiche Fogblade combo. One notable trait that this deck did have was access to Eagle Booster in order to protect Nightmare Mermaid's effect to summon from the deck. This was the easiest hit and biggest choke point of the combo overall, so maining a spell that would protect your mermaid from hand traps was pretty damn valuable. Following all this success, however, Bardiche would be banned due to the ease with which decks could make it and get access to two monster negates, and maybe because the combos it enabled with Azathoth were just too much for Konami, or hell, maybe one Konami exec in charge of the ban list was just like, I don't want to see it anymore. I don't know, because they don't tell us why, but in all reality, it's probably the Orchest shenanigans also coupled with those Azathoth shenanigans, so that's my somewhat educated guess. And so that was its fate, right up until the actual archetype that this card belongs to got support in 2021, and this card came crawling off the ban list. Gotta push that product, right? Yes, with the Phantom Knight support and Phantom Rage, this card came back to 1, and it immediately became part of the solid deck that is Phantom Knight. Finally, it was a deck able to stand on its own legs, or more accurately held up by its torn scales, because that's the new support that Phantom Knight really loved from Phantom Rage. Finally, a monster you don't mind normal summoning that's named Phantom Knight, beyond being just, a name on field for boots. These builds often played some number of generic 3 extenders, from Kagamucha Knight to the level 3 Psychic monsters, to the level 3 Dangers, to the somehow always in the opening hand Burning Abyss engine. Phantom Knight, to no shock, played Bardiche, as it helped set up any and all of the deck's plays pretty much by itself. Setting Fogblade or Brigadine was still great and the go-to for players, but now instead of only sending Ancient Cloak or Boots, you could also send Torn Scales to get more grave setup and extension, or maybe Ragged Gloves to get more grave setup and extension, or maybe Stained Greaves to just get extension. This deck had no shortage of extenders and became quite known for doing all sorts of fun things in these formats, such as the 2022 meta. I'm talking Verte into Dragoon in the early days to help give a somewhat stronger end board, evolving into Scythewalk DPE shenanigans as time would go on, also using Verte. Wonder where that card's been. The deck also made easy use of the Adventure engine with that engine's release, able to fit and foolish in the Water Enchantress with no trouble at all, thanks to Water Enchantress being a level 3, and Adventure PK builds were quite popular for a time, although not as popular as they had been in the OCG, much to the dismay of Phantom Knight players, I'm sure. Ultimately, the deck didn't really break into the meta at large, certainly not above a locals or regional level, due to the deck's surprising reliance on the normal summon, all things considered, depending on certain hands, and really just those certain hands. Because my god, does this deck brick more than I care to admit. I play the deck, I love the deck, and there's just a few too many weirdly off hands that can't reliably always make your full turn board, especially against Disruption, for it to reliably win in a 10-round YCS tier event. That and the fact that each hand does have variables means you can get a bit lost in the sauce and not always see the most optimal line for every single play. And beyond that, the deck simply doesn't do enough compared to other going first combo shenanigan decks that exist, so it's more of a pet deck than a power one. Simply put, if another deck can do it more simply and more reliably, it doesn't matter how fancy your combos can be. Otherwise, DDD would have actually mattered for more than 2 weeks in 2017. That hurts both my heart and the focus of this video, but I messed up reading the script anyway, so who cares? Truthfully, that brings us to the end of this video, because as I make it, it's about to be an all-fire meta, more or less, and Bardiche is at home in its home deck in Phantom Knight more than anywhere else. It does still show up in plenty of other decks that can fit it in, namely Dark and Warrior decks. It was often played in Blackwing before the Darkwing Blast support, and is still played in some Blackwing lists to this day, because all they do is spam Darks, and Brigadine can get them easier access to things like Redoer or Force Strix for some simple synergies. Raid Raptor is another Dark Winged Beast deck, but with some actual natural synergy, thanks to the card Raider's Wing, which is both a Raid Raptor and a Phantom Knight card, meaning it can be sent to the grave for Bardiche's effect, and Raid Raptor's Dark Lock does not affect it, because it's all dark, baby. There's also an anime lore connection between these two archetypes, but I'm not going to pretend that that has more importance than actual synergy when playing the game. And the last home worth mentioning would be just warrior piles, something like maybe Goki. It's pretty common to see the small Phantom Knight engine that's been played in all these decks I've mentioned, just to help set up some extra link climbing fodder with silent boots and accompanying those fog blades to help buff their end boards. It's a very splashable card, as has been shown, and praise Xenu, this shit cannot be used as link fodder, because the free games you could steal if you could use this to make access code would be nothing short of absurd. Overall, Bardiche is a very strong and very generic boss monster of sorts. Boss Monster doesn't quite fit, since this isn't the big beater of the board in 99% of situations, even if the Phantom Knight player using this has buffed it with Ancient Cloak's attack boosting effect. So it's not about the boss monster status, so to say, it's about the boss setup monster status. It can enable so much easy advantage, from setting traps to extend on your turn or disrupt on the opponent's, to getting free pops if you summon a Dark Xyz monster, be it the Gearsu strategies and synergies of Orchest, or the natural Xyz spam of decks like Phantom Knights or Raid Raptor. As the saying goes, it's simple, but it's damn effective. And the lack of any locks on this card and the various Phantom Knight cards for the most part means that you've got a pretty solid thing to be throwing into a deck, especially when this is one of the best types and one of the, if not the best attributes to be, featured on the card. Dark's a great attribute. I don't know what else to tell you. So long as there are dark decks that are solid, this card will find a home in some number of them. And of course, there's always going to be that one Phantom Knight player that insists to you that it is actually the best deck of the format and everyone else is just an idiot. And so that's our look at Yu-Gi-Oh! Single card history, the Phantom Knights of Rusty Bardiche. Stay tuned for our next video and feel free to suggest some cards to review or what type of video you'd like to see. Don't forget to like, and as always, subscribe to YGO Strats to impress your smoking Italian wife, and so you too can be a true duelist.